Okay, so this is part 4 of my Japan photos, and most of these were taken in Shizuoka City, but some of them were still taken in Shimada, I believe. So this place was a natural waterfall. I suppose it was natural. By I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I followed some guy who also had a scooter, a friend of mine who was a foreigner, and he had found this place, and there was sort of a shrine built there as well. And so this is somewhere in Shizuoka. It was a sort of cemetery or some sort of shrine thing. Looks like a cemetery. And I think I mentioned in my first video that I dabbled in some infrared photos or photography at that time. And that's what these are. You can see how the foliage turns out all white and the sky turns out to be a dark because it doesn't reflect any light, any infrared light. Whereas foliage really reflects it. For instance, there. And so, anyways, I have a bunch of those photos, but I'm not going to make any of those. So this is in at the top of a little hill in Shizuoka, and I still had my scooter at this time, and so I would drive around all the time. And so you can see that any flat land around the ocean was sort of urban sprawl, and then the hills and mountains was where the forest areas were. So there's the same hill or another similar hill. You can see it's all, and then beyond those lights, inset in the picture would be the ocean. So the ocean is in the horizon, and then there's another city up there. I'm not sure what that other city would be, but there you can see that the city sort of curls around that hill. One thing that should be mentioned, one of our best memories, other than the food and some other things, of Japan was the fireworks shows. They would put on such amazing shows in the summer, and my friend said it was comparable to Christmas being at the time when it's dark out and cold, that you have a celebratory time. And in Japan, it's really, really hot and sweaty, and so you have a celebratory time there. And so that's why there was amazing fireworks. And it was professionals that had toured around the world and did fireworks, and they had synchronized bangs and flashes go off at various points, and it was just really phenomenal. It was a real experience, and I don't think I'll ever experience anything like it, but the ones in my hometown are fine enough. And so I think a lot of these photos from Shizuoka I took, of course, of Mount Fuji. And so I would just go out, have a scooter ride somewhere, and take photos. And I believe this is just any window you could walk by. But yeah, we went to Tokyo a few times, and this is when I first started taking photos of it. And so I think this is Shimabara? Shinjuku. Okay, so it's Shinjuku Station. And that was my first stop in right there, sort of the high rise district of Tokyo. I don't know if that's Shinjuku right there. Anyways, and then we stayed at the Hilton. And there's my cat. And we named her Kitty because of Hello Kitty over there. It was, and she ended up coming back home with us. So, so this is from Shimizu. Up in Shimizu, there was some sort of hill that you could drive up, and I would go up there in the morning and or evening and try and take photographs. So this is, I believe, the morning. I'd get up first thing on Saturday morning or something and get a can of coffee out of those vending machines that I mentioned in one of the previous videos, the hot or the cold, and go for a scooter ride. just there is a soccer field or some sort of big stadium in that photo. So you can see the sun is just rising on the peak of Fujisan. And this was another time up in the sunset now. And it's funny, you'd go back here up on these roads, way up in the middle of the mountains on various inroads, and you'd think you'd find a spot that was, no untouched to take a photograph, and there'd be somebody there. You'd bump into somebody and you'd shoot the breeze with them and talk, and it was pretty neat. So there was a lot of sort of amateur Fuji picture takers, photographers. And in between the hills here, the mountains, you can see there's mist and haze. And a couple of my friends that were foreigners as well, they could take some really, really good photos. And so that's what I was trying to emulate in these, but obviously I didn't come close. These are just sort of mediocre or average, but some. Oh, this was an old steam train that, is a sort of a tourist attraction. And there's my cat in pounce mode. And this may, it's probably the same night based on the cloud structure, but it could have been a different night, just the same. I remember going up for scooter rides often to these various spots in the hills. And there's another town or city you can see just below. And this is Senpu Castle, which is in Shizuoka City. I believe I spoke about it in the first video. This was really neat. It was called a bunkasai. Bunka means culture, I guess, and sai means like festival or display. And so all these students would show off their talents, and each homeroom would make a different project. The homeroom would decide each year what they wanted to do, and it was just a show of culture and talent. And this was an amazing show. These people, I've looked it up so many times since, and I have no idea what they're doing. There's me. I was the narrator in the English club, reading to the school some Goldilocks and the Three Bears or something. Oh, there it is. The Little Red Riding Hood. That's what it was. And this was the tea ceremony room in the school. And here they're doing the tea ceremony, and they would serve you tea all serious and as if they're mastering it. And here, this homeroom decided to do something about video games or whatnot. And this one was about Transformers. Oh, this was my shower. You had to do something. You had to turn your showers on. They were on demand heat. There's a spider in the corner. You can see actually the dimensions of the corner. And that spider was huge, and there were a couple like this. And I played on a soccer team, futsal, 5-on-5. This was the teacher apartment building in Shizuoka City, not government, but similar to the one in Shimada City, but it was only for teachers because Shizuoka City was so much bigger. And so these ones were pretty much full capacity. But back to that spider, they would come up to the top floor. I was on the top floor of this building. the one that I'm taking the photo from. Okay, well, I'll go back to the spider in a minute. This is our inside of when you first come in, and the shower's in the right hand side. And there's the tub and the shower. You have to sort of turn on, and that's looking in the shower. And then in the right hand side, the toilet is in a different room because they don't have the shower and the toilet in the same room. That's the guest bedroom, and so we sort of used it as storage. This was our kitchen and dining area. And this was our living room to the left and our bedroom to the right with sliding doors in between each wall. And we had satellite TV. But anyway, so spiders and cockroaches would come up to the fourth floor. And with those big spiders, you couldn't even shut. I would try and slam the sliding glass door. There I said, and they wouldn't close. There I said I used to swim. I used to swim with some people in some perhaps shady areas, and so that was the one time when we were swimming in some sort of pond at a beer festival, actually, in Shimizu or something. I forget where it was. Fujieda? Anyways, it was a beer festival for the Sapporo. It was on the Sapporo brewing grounds. So this is one of my favorite. These ones here, that one in the previous one. And here I sort of dabbled in the infrared. That's what I was getting into with the infrared. You see how the foliage is all white. And then it only releases or reveals the highest end of the red. And then I tried to start doing some close-ups of Fujisan, and I think this might be Senpu Castle again in infrared. So this is just Senpu Castle, I believe, again in various angles in Shizuoka City, right downtown too, like right in the heart of the city, maybe a block or two away from downtown. It had a legit moat around it, which is kind of neat, and you could go in there, and we did. And here it is, a little Sumpu Castle. Here's another instance of students, I believe I spoke about it in video 2 or maybe 3, doing some athletic competition slash culture having fun day. And of course they did that stretch all together. Everybody did the stretch that they knew. And here's a race where you had to drink some pop with some sort of potato sack race. And that school, look at it, it looks similar to the other school, the Shimada. This is in Shizuoka. It looks similar to the Shimada school. So they were built probably post World War II era, right around then. There's the moat around Sumpu Castle. It went all around the whole block. So there's Tokyo. And I'm having a hard time remembering the name of the main spot. Haibara Station. And sometimes it comes to me like the real technology district or Ginza or the various districts like Shinjuku, of course. That's where I first landed. And I can't remember this spot, but this is the famous sort of photogenic spot. But Akihabara. Anyways, there's back up on some mountain in Shizuoka, and you can see all the flat land is occupied by night lights. And the only untouched territory, so to speak, is the hills. This is some festival. It could be the same festival in the first video or second video where they showed the sharks and the goldfish, which I meant to talk about more. The goldfish and how they're sort of a lesson on life. In one of the videos, it shows a couple. So there's the Golden Pagoda or temple in Kyoto. It's kind of a famous landmark. And one of our acquaintances over there who spoke foreign, like spoke English and hung out with foreigners, his dad was a expert in these traditional ways of roofing. So those sort of ceramic, clay, or whatever tiles that they use for shingles, he was an expert at doing that. And they had jobs all over the world, in the States, all over Japan. There's a high demand for sort of clay or traditional shingling ways. And we were on a couple dragon boat race teams there, and that's our team. And this is different than the dragon boats that I experienced in North America. And these ones were meant for sort of slave fishermen to go out and they couldn't get too far or go too fast. And it was really, really slow and heavy boat. And it just seemed sort of like it wasn't meant for moving. And in that way, there, the people that worked the boats couldn't get too far out without the masters knowing. There, so some of these photos aren't exact order, but it's the same thing. So here, so here we are in Tokyo again. We went to Tokyo quite a few times and just stayed overnight in little little hotels. Anyways, not any extravagant ones, but just sort of small little ones. And it was only about 3 hours, I think, by slow train, or 1 hour by Shinkansen, maybe 45 minutes by Shinkansen, and 3 hours by slow train. So sometimes we take the slow train if we didn't mind the extra time, or we take the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train. For instance, this guy that we were friends with who played on our soccer team, he would be able to shingle this roof and be sort of the leading expert on that in that area. And they were very, very well to do. They're the ones that bought the Hawaiian camper. I think in the third video I spoke about the Hawaiian camper that went to Nagano on trips. They're the ones that bought the Hawaiian camper. And this is the Daibutsu up in Yokohama, I believe. Dai is number one, and Butsu is this guy, the Buddhist guy, and so he's like the biggest one. Even though there's replicas of this guy or whatever, this is the Daibutsu of Japan, from what I recall. I like this picture that I took. This is in Tokyo of everyone holding an umbrella when it was raining, and I found it funny that everyone had one instead of wearing rain jackets or whatnot. That we all just, and myself included, everyone carried a umbrella around. And I like to look at this because that's what we drank. There's some pop or some sort of juice there with my cat, and so we would just recycle. There was recycling, which was great. And this is down some back alley in Tokyo. I think in that, if my memory serves me correctly, just walking down there somewhere, there's just some 80-year-old man who is hammered and urinating on the side of the road, on the side of the street, right into the gutter, so to speak, or whatever. And, something that was really remarkable was that if something stood out as inappropriate or that's not the way it should be done, then nobody would really say anything. Everybody would sort of just mind their business. And culturally, that's different everywhere. Some people will stick up for other people or whatever. But in this case, somebody was urinating on the side of the road, whatever. They probably needed to, and let's respect it. There's some pachinko or some sort of gambling. And so there was tons of this everywhere you went. In every town there was lots of pachinko. And here's just a final temple. And somewhere down the streets of Tokyo. So that's it.